guys, welcome back to JPT. I'm Carson G, and this is Just Plain Tech. Okay, so here we're going to go over some things you should know before getting the Raspberry Pi single board computer. Maybe you're thinking about getting the Raspberry Pi, but maybe you don't know what it comes with or how much it costs, stuff like that. So to start off, it only costs $35. I think $35, $35 to $40. Just go to their website and purchase it. There's also the Raspberry Pi Zero, which has a lot less stuff that comes with it, like a lot less ports and stuff. It's a lot harder to deal with, but it's $5. Then the Raspberry Pi Zero W, which has wireless and Bluetooth features, that is for only $10. Alright, so let's get started. Things you should know before getting the Raspberry Pi single board computer. Alright, so number one, it does come with no OS. It comes absolutely without an operating system. Nothing, nada, nothing. So this does mean that you will have to install the operating system yourself, which leads us to number two. The Raspberry Pi has an ARM processor. So it's kind of like a phone. It has pretty much the same processor that's in your phone, probably. And it's not a normal computer processor. Most computers have an x86 or x86_64 processor, otherwise known as i386, AMD 64, or 32-bit and 64-bit. So, but Raspberry Pi is a 32-bit ARM processor, not an Intel, not an AMD, an ARM. So, if you're make sure you know which operating system you're planning to install on your Raspberry Pi, and make sure it is compatible with ARM. For example, I think Slackware is compatible with ARM. There are some. Like if you want to use your Raspberry Pi as a Linux server, there are some distros that support ARM, like Debian. But most distros only support 32-bit and 64-bit Intel or AMD desktop. So if you want to run an actual desktop operating system, you kind of have some limited options. Just remember that. If you're thinking of installing Debian on your Raspberry Pi, you got to remember that Debian doesn't support ARM on the desktop. However, there is a port of Debian that the Raspberry Pi company made called Raspbian. It's basically Debian for the Raspberry Pi. It's Debian that will run on an ARM processor. So, technically you can do Debian, but other than that, you kind of have limited options. So make sure you find an operating system that will run on an ARM processor before you buy your Raspberry Pi. And you're also going to have to install it, which also leads us to number three. The Raspberry Pi does not come with a hard drive. It comes with an SD card slot. So everything is stored on an SD card. You have to put an SD card in there. And there's a Linux app you can get, for those of you Linux users out there. There's an app called Raspberry Pi Imager. You can easily image an ISO file, I think. Never tried it, but I think it's an ISO file that you can image onto an SD card to put into a Raspberry Pi and boot it up. So that is for Linux users out there, and I don't know if there's anything for Windows or Mac, almost definitely not for Chromebook. But, so yeah, you might want to have a Linux PC have a Linux PC beforehand to image an operating system to the Raspberry Pi. Alright, so number four, no Wi-Fi. Some Raspberry Pi models do not come with a Wi-Fi card built in. For example, the Raspberry Pi Zero does not. However, the Raspberry Pi Zero W does. So, yeah, just be aware of that, and if you want a built-in Wi-Fi card, make sure that your Raspberry Pi has a built-in Wi-Fi card, or you will have to go get a USB Wi-Fi dongle compatible with the operating system that you're running on your Raspberry Pi. And about operating systems on the Raspberry Pi, Windows will almost definitely not work. I'm just going to tell you that right now. Windows is only meant to be installed on hard drives, not USB drives or SD cards, because Microsoft actually doesn't want you doing that. So that is kind of going to be a problem. If you get a Raspberry Pi, you're going to have most luck installing Linux on it. And last, you will have to hook up all your stuff. If you want a mouse or a keyboard, doesn't matter what you want. It doesn't come with those things, so you're gonna have to hook it up yourself. If you're planning to make a desktop out of the Raspberry Pi, you're gonna have to get a monitor. You're gonna have to get a keyboard. You're gonna have to get a mouse. So if you're planning on using it like a normal computer, you're just gonna have to get stuff, and you will almost definitely have to, like, regardless of what you're doing on it, you'll almost definitely have to get at least a monitor or something, some add-on to go with your Raspberry Pi. So you think, oh, it may only be $40, but you'll also have to buy extensions to get it to work. All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please remember to hit the subscribe button and hit the bell notifications button so that you don't miss out on any of my future content.